I just want to welcome everybody to the Southwest Substation and, on this anniversary date of what's probably one of the darkest days in terms of homicide discoveries in the city of Albuquerque. I remember back when this occurred, I was a graveyard lieutenant in the Southwest Area Command, and I remember just the resources that we had out there every day for what appeared to be months upon months, just guarding or being a presence at the scene during the nighttime to secure it, while criminalistics worked the scene during the day. And over the years, I really learned how this had become part of the Southwest Area Command. I was very fortunate during my career, and if there's one area command that was more part of my career than any other, it was the Southwest. I was, patrol officer for the Southwest. I was sergeant in the Southwest, lieutenant. I later became the commander of the Southwest, and I remember when I became the commander and the talks were beginning and we were trying to get some kind of memorial for this. Even back then, our city councilor was in the front of everything, trying to help make sure that we recognize and that we do something to help remember all the victims. This is something that'll probably never go away, always be part of APD history, and hopefully someday we can get some resolution. But one of the commitments I've made to the families, myself and the mayor, is that we want to make sure victims, families always have somewhere to go, and that's why we've worked so hard to hire people like Terry, who will be there to always update our victims. And, we're really looking back at our homicide cases and looking to see how we could clear them. Our homicide team has had a great month. We've cleared a number of homicides this month, and we actually have plans beyond that. We want to go back and revisit some of these older cases and get the resources we need to them. It's just a matter of having enough resources. The new commander has thought out of the box on some ways that he could bring in more retired people through contract to see how they could assist us in moving some of these older cases forward. So we'll continue to work. You have my commitment as long as I'm chief of police, and I know we have the mayor's commitment as long as he's the mayor, and the city councilor's commitment that we will continue to work these cases, and that we'll continue to seek justice for the families of those that have lost their lives within our city. So thank you for being here, and I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over to Rebecca.
Okay, and then Mayor Keller is going to be speaking a little bit, and then we're going to toss to Liz Thompson, our investigator.
Well, good morning. We're here, first and foremost, I want to thank APD and the chief and the FBI for continuing to not give up on this case. And especially, we're going to hear from our FBI special agent in charge, but we appreciate the local effort that's being placed on this. And what we want to make sure and do is we're going to use this anniversary as an occasion to do it. But part of what we have to do as a community with these cases is, number one, support the victims and the families of the victims. And so, as Chief mentioned, that's a large reason why, it's the biggest part of the reason why we are committed to this notion of victims advocacy and the new position we have with Terry Huertas. So that is one piece of what we're doing. The second piece is we are going to continue to ask the public for help. The only way this case is going to get solved is with our community's help, or even communities around us that might know something. We need new information on this case. That is what is going to lead to it getting solved. And so we want to remind everyone, if you know anything about this case or have any potential leads, please call Crime Stoppers with that information. Now, we also know that we want justice, right? That's first and foremost what we're after in this situation. And sometimes we don't have all the answers, but we're not going to quit. That's also what we want to remind everyone who may have information about this, and also if by chance people who are involved in this are listening or know about this. We will eventually solve this case. It might be a long time, just like some of the cases that we solved from the rape kit backlog, but eventually we will find justice. To do that, we just cannot quit. And that's why we're here today reminding everyone we are not going to give up on these women or their families. Now, I would also just mention that part of that is telling their story and honoring what happened in their lives. And we were supposed to be out at the park way out on the Southwest Mesa near where this occurred that memorializes these women and unfortunately this tragedy. Obviously, because of the weather, we're not out there, but I want to remind folks that's an important part as well. We need to tell the story, even though it's a painful story and it's a horrific story, but we will continue to tell the story until we get answers. And so with that too, we want to hand it over to the investigator. This is on her plate among lots of things, but we'll hand it over to Investigator Liz Thompson.
You're good to go, Liz.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. I'm Liz Thompson, and I retired late in 2017 as APD's homicide sergeant. Last summer, I was asked to come back to APD as the contract investigator to help with cold cases, including working with investigator Ida Lopez on the 118th Street cases. This story really begins way back in the early 2000s when women started going missing and not ever turning up again. I realized there were patterns emerging, possibly linking these missing women. They were women with struggles, disconnected from their support systems. Some found themselves homeless or marginally housed. Some were driven over the streets, and chillingly, many knew each other, and all were last seen in the same areas of Albuquerque. As the list grew, patterns became more clear. I believed the women on her list would all be found together. On February 2nd, 2009, we began to learn the fate of 10 of those women. They had been killed and buried on the West Mesa of Albuquerque along the unformed child one. I wanted to be very clear. This remains an open and active investigation. I want to dispel the sad and disturbing myths that are out there about the investigation, such as investigators know who did this but aren't doing anything because this person is dead. That there are only 2 suspects, or the worst, we haven't solved it because the investigators simply don't care about these women. Nothing could be further from the truth. The investigation into what happened to the women on Ida's list has been extensive. Hundreds of people have been interviewed. Many persons of interest have been identified. Tips continue to come in almost every single week. Every tip is evaluated. New or unknown information is investigated. To date, we have received close to 1,200 tips on these cases. We have eliminated many suspects. At this time, there are a number of people who are being investigated as persons of interest. More and more technology becomes available to help us. For example, tips led to 2 extensive searches in 2018, one using ground-penetrating radar and another that did find buried human remains, but were then determined to be part of an ancient burial ground. Another tip from the public led to an expansive search in the summer of 2021. Sadly, the search did not produce anything more in the way of answers, but we appreciate every tip because we never know which one may be that tip that solves this mystery. What we do know about the person responsible for these horrendous murders is this person is a predator who sought out vulnerable women. Women who, by virtue of where they were or what they were doing, were more likely to go unnoticed, less likely to be reported missing or to report bad behavior themselves. Many of them battling addictions or other demons. This person may have previously victimized women without killing them. This may have been reported. They may have been caught. And the person may have escalated to killing and burying the bodies to conceal the crimes. We believe the burying of the women's bodies is key. The person responsible had the means and the know-how to not only navigate a then remote and barely accessible area of the West Mesa, but to also methodically dig and then bury the women without clues such as clothing, personal items, or evidence of the method of killing, such as bullets, bullet casings, or remarkable blunt force trauma. This person may have been charming or friendly in order to build trust or a relationship of some kind with the women first, in order to get these otherwise streetwise women to go with them and not attract unwanted attention. I want to urge the public, if you have any information related to these murdered and missing women, please contact the Albuquerque Police Department. If you recognize any one of these women and have any information, we want to hear from you. If you are a family member we have lost touch with, we want to hear from you. We continue to have a reward of up to $100,000 for information leading to the arrest and successful prosecution of who is responsible. Our hope is that we get that one tip that gives us the missing piece. We also hope that the person responsible or someone who knows what happened to these women has carried this burden for too long and is finally ready to come forward. Thank you, and I would like to hand it over to FBI Special Agent in Charge, Raul Bujanda.
Well, thank you, Liz and Chief and Mayor. So like everything else that we do within the city, we do it together, we do it jointly. This investigation has and will continue to be no different. The FBI and I acknowledge the pain and suffering of those relatives who are still going through this and living this on a daily basis. Like I have many conversations with my family, some of which is in Spanish. I will say this in Spanish. Prometo ser la voz de las vidas que hemos perdido. We will continue to be the voice of those that no longer have a voice. I want to acknowledge the Albuquerque Police Department for the fine work that they have done on this investigation. And like it's been said today by Liz and others, we were part of this investigation from the very get-go, and this investigation is far from being done. Therefore, our efforts are far from being done. We still regularly receive leads on this investigation, and we run every single one of them to ground. The FBI wants to remind the public that we are offering a reward of up to $50,000, and that's just from the FBI piece. Obviously, the reward is much higher than that. And we want to find that one key piece of information, no matter how small, that is going to give us the key that's going to break this investigation and finally provide some peace to the victims, some of which are here. Thank you for coming, Victoria. The FBI will do everything we possibly can to bring all our resources, to include anything that we perhaps didn't have available to us when we first started this investigation, which includes various technology. Somebody out there has information that could help us solve this case and bring closure to the many families. We're not going to stop until we bring that closure. So now is the time for someone out there that knows a little something to step up and be brave and share that information with all of us. So if you know anything, just like it was stated before, call Crime Stoppers or call us, 1-800-CALL-FBI or tips.fbi.gov on the internet. In a newspaper article that I saw last year, Eleanor Griego, the mother of one of the victims, said, "I'm tired and I just want closure. Those girls deserve closure, but I don't know if they will ever get it." That's a strong statement. And all I can say to that is the FBI is working every day to honor Eleanor's daughter, Julie, and the other victims by doing everything we can to give them that closure. So at this point, I'll go ahead and turn it over to the Chancellor. Thank you, Chancellor.
Thank you for being here. I just want to thank the mayor and the chief. You know, this has been a long haul for so many in the community. I represent District 3, and this is something that's been one of my priorities since I was elected into office, and as the chief stated, even beyond that, if you live in this community, this is something that you have in the back of your mind throughout the years. So I just really want to start with saying that our thoughts and prayers are to the family and the friends of these young ladies who went missing. I've had the good fortune throughout the years, because we did the Memorial Park on the Southwest Mesa, of getting to know the families. And as it was stated a minute ago, these family members just want closure, and we hope that there's tips out there, or anybody who knows anything can help in closing this case, so the families can finally put their family members to rest at peace. Last year, very interestingly enough, the dog who actually found the first bone out there, Ruka, passed away. So I always want to recognize Ruka, because if it wasn't for her, who knows if this would have ever transpired. So just quickly, I just want to say the names of the young ladies that were there. One in particular, and the picture is there, Doreen Marcus. She has two lovely daughters. One of them, I think they've moved to Texas, and one of them is becoming a doctor, and they just are just such amazing people. So just so that you know that all these ladies had a bright future ahead of them. Unfortunately, whether it was substance abuse or some other tragedy that's happened in their life, it took them down the wrong path. So, Jamie Varela, Monica Candelaria, Victoria Chavez, Virginia Cloven, Sylvania Edwards, Cinnamon Alks, Doreen Marquez, Julia Nieto, Veronica Romero, Evelyn Salazar, Michelle Valdez, and her unborn child. We're still, as you all know, the Memorial Park was completed a while back, but we're still looking to add some features to the Memorial Park that are going to continue to bring attention and tribute to these wonderful women. So thank you.
And we can open it up to questions. Liz is available for any questions as well that you guys might have.
I have a question. Liz had mentioned that one of the myths surrounding this case is that there were not only two suspects. A few years ago, you guys had announced that there Lorenzo and Joseph were the main two suspects. Are they still suspects, or not at all? They've completely been cleared?
Liz, were you able to hear the question?
I'm sorry, I wasn't able to hear the question.
The question was, the two gentlemen that have been mentioned as suspects, are they still suspects, or are there other people that are being looked at?
They are still suspects, and there are other suspects that we're looking at.
Liz, I have a question. I'll speak really loud so you can hear me. What has been the hardest part about this investigation for you and your detectives?
So it's really garbled. I'm going to have the question repeated.
The hardest part about the investigation for you and the other detectives that have worked it and still do?
The hardest part is just how long it is taking to get answers for the families and what happened. And also that, it's a difficult case to begin with. I mean, this is really 11 murders that we know of. We also have unidentified human remains cases that we are looking into that we think might be related. And so it's a very complicated case. And it's hard. It's taking a long time. We really want that information to come forward that finally puts closure to it. It's gut-wrenching that all these families don't know what happened. The missing women's family don't know where their loved ones are. As a mother, especially, it's very difficult and painful to think what they have been going through for all these years.
Liz, what else can you tell us about the search in the summer of 2021? You mentioned that there was another search project.
Liz, can you talk about the search that was done last year, over the summer?
So we received a tip in regards to possible additional burial sites. And so this is a a tedious process when you think that you have a clandestine grave sites. It was very involved in regards to taking a look at the site and what it includes, and bringing in all different kinds of expertise from everything from historical satellite photography, cadaver dogs, and then of course forensic anthropologists. And so it did involve some digging. Unfortunately, we didn't find anything that provided us with any answers. But again, we really took the tip seriously, and it looked like it was going to turn out to be something. And again, we appreciate every tip, and we are going to follow up on that.
Can you tell us where it is? Where the site was?
Are you able to share where that site was?
I can say that it was also on the West Mesa. I can't be more specific than that.
How many persons of interest are there? She said that she's interviewed numerous, but an idea of numbers.
Are you able to say the number of suspects that you all are looking at?
So what I'd like to say about that is that it is actually a dynamic number. So we actually get tips on suspects fairly regularly. So the number does change as we start looking into a new tip or we eliminate someone. But I can tell you it is more than the 2 that is commonly out there, and it does change from week to week, month to month as we eliminate people. And so it's a dynamic number, but it's more than 2, and it's more than a few.
Are there any more questions?
I have a question for the chief, if that's all right.
Oh, and I have some-
Chief, you know, you have lots of families who want answers from this for the past 13 years. You have family members sitting in this room right now. What do you have to say to them about your work to at least try and find them answers before you leave the department at any time soon?
You know, it's great that you asked that question, because that was actually what I was stepping up here for. You know, I think that we have to remember we could never give up hope. There was a case near and dear to my heart, Althea Oakley, that she was a murdered UNM student. We talked about it earlier this year. And I had asked, when I was a lieutenant, I had asked APD to reopen this case and to look into it, and they said there was no answers. When I was a commander again in about 2014, I once again asked that they look into it, and they said there was no answers. In 2018, I asked again if they could look into it, and again there was no answers. And lo and behold, in 2021, somebody came forward and they confessed to the crime, and we're in the process of prosecuting that crime. And they confessed on other crimes that were very old within our community, and the families got closure. So it's never really closed. There's always somebody out there who knows something, and we're hoping that at some point in time, just like this individual felt the need that they needed to come forward and get this off their chest, that there's somebody out there that needs to get something off their chest and they need to bring it forward, recognizing that they have family members, and if they were in the same position, they would want some kind of justice. Sometimes when people start thinking about the impact that it's having on others and how they would feel as family members, it changes their perception. I mean, we had earlier this week, we had an individual who killed a 7-year-old who decided to turn themselves in. And we had a message to that individual at one point, to think about everybody else. So there is somebody out there who has information, and there are grieving families that have been dying for questions for way too long. And we're hoping that these individuals who have this additional information can come forward and give us the information so that we could bring closure to these families. But to the families that are out there, I tell each and every one of you, don't ever give up hope. Don't ever stop praying for answers, because sometimes those prayers are answered, and it's at the most unique time that something comes forward and we're able to give closure to people. The Oakleys, I grew up around them. They had given up hope, and over Christmas, they sent me a Christmas card saying that they look forward to, when this is completely done, that we could go back home to Taos and have dinner together and you know, finally celebrate the closure. So sometimes closure does come at the most unique times, and let's hope for the best with this case. But the Albuquerque Police Department will continue to devote the resources necessary to try to bring closure to this case, which is by far the largest homicide case in the history of this department. Thank you.
Are there any more questions?
I just have one more question. I'm not sure who this is for, but obviously the city has expanded, it's changed over the past 20 years. Are there concerns that the next burial site could have been covered up in new construction?
Do you want to talk or Liz?
Go ahead, Liz can if you want.
Liz, I'm not sure, the question was, with so much buildup in that area and building that happened before the women were found, is there concern that there might be sites that were covered by construction?
Yes, that's a really good question. We of course do have that concern, and we hope that if there's someone out there who's hearing this and knows that during the construction of homes or their particular home that something suspicious was found but wasn't brought to the attention of the authorities, we would like those people to still come forward. We definitely have that concern. We definitely have that concern regarding construction that's going on currently, and there is communication with those construction companies, and we try to keep an open line of communication that this is really important, that they let us know anything that they find that's suspicious.
And just the last quick thing, these two posters, so these women were the women that were identified, and these are the 8 women that are still missing that were part of the investigation IDA opened into all the missing women. So they still have not been found. And then the last thing, we did put a video together on the West Mesa case. We interviewed Ida, who's also an investigator on the case, and the family of Julie Nieto spoke to us. So we'll be sharing that later today on social media and putting out the press release with the posters as well. So thank you guys.